Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. I am going to read you portions of a story, once again on Gaza. This time, it appears to show some degree of friction between the U.S. on the one hand and Israel on the other. The problem is there should be a massive so what? So what that there is friction? The friction is meaningless because the US, despite that apparent friction, is still willing to send money and materiel to Israel and has still not said, look, our continued support of your war is dependent upon your meeting our demands. Why has Joseph Biden not done that? Well, I think the answer again returns to the fact that President Biden, and I use that word president with a great deal of reservation, is a Zionist, as he himself has said many, many times. Too many times to remember. It is a genuine tragedy which is playing out in Gaza. And not only in Gaza, I mean, who knows what Iran and Hezbollah might do after Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, which again is sovereign Iranian territory. In other words, it is as if Israel had bombed Iran. Does Israel know that? Of course they know that. Israel has been itching for a war with Iran for years. And they have been trying so far unsuccessfully. But I don't know how long that will last, to drag the US into that war. To me, and this is only my impression, it seems as though it is only a matter of time before the US is brought into a war with Israel against Iran. Why? Because Israel is under enormous pressure from its allies to act. But Israel has not acted out of common sense. It knows that if it does act against Israel, well, first of all, it'll be futile because of the Iron Dome. But second, because Iran will lose. There is no way, no rational way anyway, that Iran could possibly even with Hezbollah's assistance, win a war against the Zionist entity. It simply is not in the cards. And Iran knows that. Iranian citizens, other people in West Asia are responding out of justifiable anger. But heads of state need to act on the basis of reason. They can't only respond on the basis of anger. Anger cannot be their only emotion. If it is, they will lose, and they know that. So, will Iran eventually, whether by itself or more likely through Hezbollah, take some sort of dramatic military action against Israel, more than Hezbollah has been doing in recent weeks? I don't know, but I think so. I think so. I don't see how they can avoid doing it. I hope I am wrong. And not because I care about Israel, because I don't, because I care about the Iranians, about the Arabs who live in West Asia, about the Palestinians who also live in West Asia, about the Egyptians who live in Africa on the border of West Asia, who would be immediately impacted by any attack by Iran or Hezbollah on Israel, even though that attack is bound to fail. Israel is simply looking for the right provocation. And that would be it. I think that would be it. And if Israel enters into that war, do you really think that Joseph Biden would not follow? I don't. And what that might result in, given the degree of tensions, not only in West Asia, but between Russia and Ukraine, and with the nukes in North Korea, even though North Korea has not threatened to use them now. But bear in mind, North Korea is an ally of Iran. And even if Iran has no nuclear weapons, North Korea does. Now, does that mean that North Korea will arise to defend Iran? I don't know, but it might. It might. This is a really, really dangerous world that we live in. I am happy I have no children. I feel bad for people who do, because most parents put the lives of their children ahead of their own. And what might happen would totally disrupt that. And Israel does not give a damn. That is clear. Bibi Netanyahu does not give a damn. Let me go ahead and put on my spectacles and read for you this article from the Times of Israel, dated today. It is titled Report Dermer, referring to Ron Dermer, yelled with yelled in scare quotes at U.S. officials. This is an online meeting. This is not face-to-face. So I guess on Zoom or some kind of platform like Zoom, during meeting on Rafah operation. Here's the article. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer became angry and yelled at senior U.S. officials during an online meeting earlier this week to discuss Israel's plans for a military operation in the southern city of Rafah. That is according to the U.S. network NBC. My own question is, does Dermer know where the money and the weapons that he is using are coming from? Does he know that? He must. He must. I was thinking before that Israel has become like the 51st state to the US. But in retrospect, I think I had it backwards. I think that basically the US has become a colony, a dependency of Israel. Israel says jump, and the US asks, how high? And the US is supposed to be the world's sole superpower? Is that how a superpower behaves? So I'm beginning to think that maybe the world's sole superpower, in practical terms, at least in this case, is not the US, it is Israel. Israel is calling the shots, and Biden is letting Israel get away with it. Because Biden, as he has repeatedly said, is a Zionist. I guess a Christian Zionist or Catholic Zionist or something. Continuing. The report, citing 2 U.S. officials and 1 former U.S. official familiar with the meeting, says that after being told that Israel's plans for the evacuation of 1.4 million people, 1.4 million people sheltering in the city, were unrealistic. Dermer began yelling and waving his arms around as he defended the plan. The report says U.S. officials at the meeting, including 2 real heroes, and yes, I am being sarcastic, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, remained calm during the incident. Pause. Why did they remain calm? Was it because they agreed with Ron Dermer? I don't know. Or they just felt as though there was nothing to be gained by yelling back. I guess both are a possibility. Maybe we'll find out at some point, but right now, that information is not available to us. Continuing. However, the report also quotes the U.S. officials as saying that it's long been routine. It's long been routine for Dermer to become animated. This sounds like more than animated to me, but I wasn't there. During meetings with U.S. officials, and described the meeting as no more contentious than other recent conversations between the 2 governments. Well, that's saying a lot. If that person is telling the truth, then Ron Dermer yells at U.S. officials all the time. Well, what can you say? Continuing, an Israeli official who attended the meeting told NBC their description was wrong. Well, he contradicted the other officials, right? Okay, bear that in mind. He told NBC their description was wrong and a misrepresentation of what occurred in the room. The meeting, he said, was constructive, whatever the hell that means, and respectful, even during disagreements. There was no yelling at any point. There's an old expression. If you believe that, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you, referring to the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, who would believe what this guy is saying? He is literally contradicted by other officials. So it's clear that what he is saying is intentional, designed to turn down the steam. But it's not truthful. continuing. Israeli reports have previously painted the meeting as difficult. Yeah, difficult. That's a good word. Stating that it showed the US and Israel are on completely different pages. Okay? When it comes to Israel's planned operation in Rafah, where Jerusalem says 4 Hamas battalions remain. I mean, look, none of us were there. We have no way of knowing how much of this is true, how much of this is a lie. We can't know that because we were not at that meeting. But I think it is clear, at least to me, that although the US supports Israel, it does not support the extreme hawkishness of Israeli policy. And it wishes that Israel would turn down the heat. That's what it seems like to me. Not that the US is turning its back on Israel, which I wish it would, but that the US is saying, stop being so aggressive. I don't know. I mean, I guess that could be true, what I said, but on the other hand, maybe not. That is the end of the article, so I will remove my glasses. I don't know what to make of that story, but I guess the only people who can make something of it are people who were in attendance. And I assume that none of you were, unless on the odd chance that somebody who was there is watching this podcast, which I find highly doubtful. And certainly I was not there. So all I can do is speculate. Now, I have nothing against speculation. I am not a nominalist. Nominalists and conceptualists generally oppose speculation. As a Bhaskarian critical realist, I love speculation. However, speculation needs to be grounded in empirical evidence. And that is the problem. We do not have direct access to that evidence. And so, although we can speculate if we like, I guess, there really is no point to it because we have no way of knowing if our speculations are based on actual things which happened during the online meeting. Maybe, maybe not. I would assume that there is tension. There is always tension between countries, even countries that support each other. Hell, there are even tensions between officials in the same country. So you don't have to talk about different countries. You can talk about one country and talk about the tensions and the fights and the arguments which break out in meetings. There are always fights on these issues. Anybody who goes into public affairs or politics or anything like that inevitably has very strong opinions. Inevitably. Or else they would not have chosen that as their field. And so it is, or it should be expected, that there would be arguments. But for Ron Dermer, to be yelling at U.S. officials, the people who are feeding him, who are supplying him with weapons and money, and who, despite their disagreements with him on Rafah, are still supporting Israel's supposed right to defend itself, something which I do not. And for as long as I can remember, maybe there was a time when I felt differently, but for as long as I can remember, never did. I have never supported the right, to my recollection, of Israel to defend itself, because I know how Israel was started. And so to me, Israel is not a legitimate country. I don't accept it as a country. I don't. Now, who cares what I think? What I think is meaningless. I know that. I know that. Nobody's going to pay any attention to me. And why should they? I have no power, whether political power, economic power, or any other kinds of power. I have none. So these countries will not listen to people like me. I mean, I am a revolutionary communist, a Maoist third worldist, who by definition sides with the third world. And Gaza is a part of the third world. So I side with Gaza. I will always side with Gaza. And I will always regard Israel and other first world countries, including my own, the US, as my enemy. But my view is so odd, is so unusual. How many people would agree with me? Virtually nobody, at least nobody in the US. So it makes no difference what I think. And the more I do these podcasts, the more I realize their futility. Does that mean I will stop doing them? No. But I literally feel like I am wasting my time. I literally feel that way. And I wonder if there's something I can do that would be more beneficial to Gaza and the Gazans. Sadly, I can't think of anything else. If I were a young man, maybe. Maybe I could travel to Gaza, maybe, if I could get in and fight with the Gazans. I am certainly willing to do that. But I am not a young man. I am a 68-year-old man with osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, as I have said before. I would be more of a liability to any combat force than an advantage. No combat force would want me. It's like when I was a kid as an autistic, and many autistics, if you are listening, can relate to me, I think. When I was literally forced to play team sports in PE in middle school, which at that time was called junior high school. Part of me hated it, but part of me understood it. I was always the last person to be picked for any team. Why? Because I was lousy at sports. Well, not all sports. I was good at track and field. I was so at basketball, but that's about it. Anything else, I sucked. I really sucked. I would sometimes end up inadvertently helping the opposing team. That's how bad I was. I had no concept of what my team was. That was my autism, my cognitive deficits that I had. So if I had that kind of cognitive deficit because of my inability to successfully do well in PE, in gym, as we usually called it back then, then how in the world at 68, when I'm weaker than I was back then, am I going to be able to defend or help to defend the Gazans from the Israelis? The answer is I can't. I would like to. I would like to. But for me, it's my whole body. My whole body is giving out. I mean, I can walk around fine. I can even run or jog. But I still have osteoporosis. That means if I get hit in the wrong part of my body, I could be disabled for life. And then I would not be of use to anyone. So that is not the best arena of action for me. This is, I think, what I'm doing right now. At least I hope it is. I don't know, but I hope I am doing some good. For the time being, this has been Mark Foster. For the Mark Foster podcast. See, I changed it a bit. For the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.